Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the football experience. And Caleb, we have to give some praise to a certain team that has already wrapped up their league in the beginning of May. They could have done it last weekend, so that would have been in April. But the Napoli faithful had to wait a week longer or a couple of days longer at least to wrap it up. But they did it away from home at Udinese.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess the after party the true after party will be this weekend. Once they're playing
I
at
think
home.
they've been partying. I think they partied on Sunday and they've been partying since, to be quite fair. Look, one note, I'm not going to start on the second. Let's say congratulations for at least up until the World Cup break, probably even coming back from the World Cup break. Congratulations for the team that were probably the best team in Europe. They have fallen off that level, I think, in recent weeks. Ever since Osimhen got injured ever since that international break, they've fallen off that level. But congratulations to.
But it also might be the fact that this sort of might be that Bayern Munich curse. Remember when Pep was at Bayern, and then they would wrap up the league like late March, mid-April, and then they'll just start teetering off. Like they wouldn't be as sharp, and then you'd notice that in the Champions League especially.
Well, you noticed it. I think you noticed it on Sunday more when they had a chance to wrap it up, when it was ideal to wrap it up, when Lazio had already lost and everyone's ready to go off at home and they couldn't wrap it up. And I think that's where you see that sort of, that tapering off process because they're so far ahead because they were so clearly the best team in Italy in what was a strong Serie A. They just took it by storm at the start of the season and they really were. They were a revelation, man, because we'd never heard of Kvaratskhelia before. They just lost Koulibaly. They just lost, I think, Insigne, Dries Mertens. They'd lost a core of players who were there under Sarri. And they had to reinvent. And I remember when we were doing the Serie A title race, might have been me and Matthias in that pod to preview the season. I named the other 6 clubs who were in the top 7. Even I went as far as Lazio, and Lazio were my cutoff point, but I didn't name Napoli as a team. I think they were an afterthought. It was like, can they win the title? They've lost key players. It'll be a rebuild, but man, the way they came up, Kvaratskhelia was unbelievable. Then Osimhen was unbelievable. Then he got injured. They carried the slack, and then Osimhen come back. And for the Champions League record, I think the Osimhen injury was the moment they lost. Well, you can point to the 4-0 loss at home in the league as well. But, man, the Osimhen injury just came at the wrong time. He was flying. He was in such good form. And then he's knocked out of it because of, A, an international break, and then, B, a couple of weeks off after that international break. And he just wasn't sharp when he came back. He wasn't fit, and it was plain to tell. And when you can only have maybe 80-85% max of that guy who... Yeah, maybe less.
The game that I saw against AC, that was... Yeah, he was pretty much just playing through the center and barely any movement.
Yeah. So, I think the overall feeling with the Napoli title is awesome. They've been so good. Like I keep saying, interested to see where they are next year. Interested to see what happens in the summer. I have a funny feeling they might be all right in the summer. I have a funny feeling De Laurentiis is going to do his old De Laurentiis thing and ask for crazy prices, and rightly so. He should ask for crazy prices for these players. So I have a feeling they might be able to stave it off. They might be able to keep Osimhen for another season or beyond, maybe even Kvaratskhelia. He's the one I'm interested to see. What's he doing next season at the start of next season? Is he as good as we saw at the start of this season now that everyone can game plan for him? Or does his effect sort of wane a bit? Or does it not matter because when you have those two players together, then if he takes all that gravity, Osimhen can shine. So, yeah, ultimately, a revelation this season. But in the theme of what has been recent weeks, a little bit anticlimactic the way they win the title. It's
with a couple of draws in a row.
Yeah, it's another draw. It's away at Udinese. I didn't like the pitch invasion. I've got to say, I'm think pitch invasions need to go. No more pitch invasions. So anyone who's listening and was thinking about maybe doing a pitch invasion for their team win at the time, just think twice. Don't do it. Nothing good can happen. Let the players enjoy it. You can enjoy it in the stands. That's great. But man, like Zelensky had his shorts taken off him. He was walking around in his underwear, and people were begging him for his shirt, like to the point where it was like cringe. It's like, dude, leave this guy alone. He's a human being. Just let him get out of here. I don't know. Just for me, it didn't sour it, but it's like, it's not so good. But yeah, it's nice to see them win the league, even though I think ultimately they have a feeling of a little bit of disappointment because I think a bigger prize was it's hard to say a bigger prize given that it's been 33 years or whatever it is, not since the days of Maradona, of course. So unbelievable achievement. They'll be very happy with their season. It could have been better, but I guess if you gave them a Napoli fan that at the start of the season, they'd snap your hand off for that.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be too disgruntled about being knocked out in the Champions League. Like, from one perspective, there might be a little bit of disappointment there because they probably were the best team on that side of the draw. But I think just the way that everything lined up for AC Milan, where in the first leg you had you had Kim and who else got a second yellow?
And Anguissa.
Yeah. So you had the two players missing there. And then you had two injuries in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes in the second leg. You had Osimhen obviously playing at probably 50%, in all honesty, like from what I saw from him. There was zero movement. So, yeah, I think that the way things just lined up perfectly for AC in terms of injuries and yellow cards to the opposition team. If you look at it from that perspective, it's not disappointing. It would be different if they had a full strength squad for both legs, and then they still lost. That would be much more disappointing than the way it actually happened.
Yeah, I guess they always have the excuse.
Well,
that as
perspective at least.
And I think they did enough. They did enough to win, even with what they had. They got a little unlucky. Milan defended really well. They had a really professional game plan, to give them credit, but on other days, Napoli, one of those shots goes through someone's legs, deflects the wrong way, a cross goes into someone's path, and Napoli, they score that chance early in the first leg at the San Siro, and the whole thing changes. So they're unlucky as well, but they've got the excuse.
Yeah, but I guess also when it comes down to injuries and stuff like that sort of comes down to luck, but maybe the luck is being taken out of that with the amount of sports science that we have in terms of at least overload injuries. But in terms of impact injuries, there's no luck there, I don't think.
Yeah, and that's a kicker for him as well because he was away on national team duty when it happened. He wasn't even under their supervision, I guess. But here's a question to segue to the rest of Italy. I think Napoli, they get the props. I think their moment was against Juve when they beat Juve in Turin. That was when I thought, all right, that's your exclamation point. That's where, we already knew they were going to win the league, but that's where it's all but certain, and you've got to win there for the first time in ages against an old enemy. So that's your moment. That's your last moment of relevance, really, for this season, because except for now. But yeah, I think we're done with Napoli. Probably won't, unless it's about the future, we probably won't talk about them much for the rest of the season. But the segue I was going to ask is if you're either of the Milan clubs, Inter or AC, would you trade your position to be Napoli right now? Knowing that you are in the semi-finals in a very winnable tie. Most people think that's a 50-50 tie. And then you've got a chance to win the trophy. That means the most, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll let you answer first and then I'll give my take.
I think because they've both had success in recent years in terms of winning the league, not necessarily recent. It depends what you define as recent. Well,
they've won the last two between them, one each.
But also in terms of the Champions League, AC won it 15 years ago.
07.
Yeah, so 15 years ago. Inter won it 12 years ago. 12, 13 years ago. So it depends whether you consider that recent or not. In terms of league titles, they've they've won that respectively between them. They've won that last 2 years. Inter, I think, have won. They won just. They won like 2 or 3 in the last 4 or 5 years, haven't they?
No, that one under Conte was, I think, the first one since Mourinho, because Juve had a 9 in a row run.
I thought so that was their first one. Did any other team? Was it always Juve that was winning that? Yeah, because Ronaldo won every single one when he was there. Yeah. Okay, but even so, like just going back before that Juve run, they were still winning leagues respectively between them. So I think that they're probably in that position where they'd rather be in the Champions League semi-final/final than winning the league. I feel like with their fans, like of course they'd take it, but they wouldn't snap your hand off for it like Napoli would, considering the time gap between them winning the league is very, very short.
I wanna throw a spanner in the works of your answer though, which is the current situation and why it's a good segue into what we're going to talk about. Neither of these teams are assured of top 4. So you're taking a massive risk. Now, if you were cemented in second or third and you were very likely to finish in the top 4 as these Milan clubs, and then you have the chance of maybe winning it, then sure. That's where I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have a chance of winning the big trophy. The league title is always your bread and butter, but still, like the Champions League is, I don't know, is the one that you look at first at the end of the career and the resume. So yeah, I'd say that. But the fact that these clubs, and well, all six of the Italian clubs in the hunt for top 4 played on Wednesday night, and this is why it's the segue to this. But Milan are certainly not in any sort of position to feel good about themselves. Inter, on the other hand, might feel good about themselves after the last 2 games and 1 week that they've had. But yeah, I think that's the spanner in the works, and that's why for me, because it's still just a semi-final, and because the opponent in the final is so formidable, I think I take the league title and being secure in Champions League because of as well the financial implications for these clubs. Inter really need to make Champions League because I think there was already talk of them cutting the wage bill before this season. So if they don't get that extra Champions League money, I hate to think of how much they'll need to cut it then. And Milan need to keep hold of their stars because I think on their day, the players that they have actual world-class players in some positions, as I'm sure everyone knows already. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the way I'd go. But is it time to dive into what we saw midweek and give a little perspective on what the top 4 looks like in Serie A?
Man, I just looked at the table now, and
I love getting your reactions. I love that you're like a little bit of a casual with the European stuff. So like you come in and you have a look, and it's like, oh my god, what's happening there?
Yeah, because I don't watch too much of the other leagues, barely any. And then like when I have all I can sort of go off of is the table, the results, the stats, and so on. And the thing that immediately popped into my eyes was Atalanta. Because they were languishing down in like 7th, like I think the last time we spoke they were like, I think the 2 times before, so like 2 pods before, they were like 4 or 5 points behind, like 4th spot or 5th spot at the time, and now they're like just 2 points behind, and they've leapfrogged AC and Roma.
I know, because of the midweek fixtures, because AC and Roma were the only 2 clubs who failed to win.
Again.
Which one do you want to... Do you want to start on the losers for the Serie A? And then...
I suppose so. But the other thing that immediately sticks into my mind is 15 points left to play for, and Lazio are now 6 points clear of 5th. So, would you say that, how like we called I called Newcastle early after the
Yeah,
Man
you asked me
United
this
win.
last time about Lazio as well.
Yeah, do you think
I'll,
now,
I'll,
after the midweek result, that they're a lock?
I'll give you that answer, but that will be towards the end of this wrap
Towards the end of the
because of
season.
what. No, but just the end of this top four wrap in Serie A. Then I don't know if I'll give you my answer, but I'll give you my views on what Lazio are doing. But the losers from midweek. So we had a bumper Wednesday night of 6 games because none of them were playing against each other, which is perfect for what we're going to see this weekend. But I had to watch 6 games on the Thursday, and it was a little bit of a gruel. And the teams who put me through a big gruel, you're not going to be surprised. Roma were a bit grueling to watch at the end of the day as well. It's just like I was flagging. I was like, oh man, Roma, terrible. I had the Inter game on at the same time, so that kind of helped because Inter were big winners in the midweek. But Roma, I can't get on Roma's back too much, to be quite honest, because yes, they were given a gift in this game, goalkeeper error. They press on it, they score from it. They're not able to hold on to it. Again, they're playing Brian Cristante at centre back. Again, they're sort of ushering people in. I think thought Bove had a great game in that midfield, considering they didn't have Cristante or Matic or Wijnaldum and that's the story of Roma. This is a team that is stuck together by sticky tape at this point of the season. They're ushering kids in, they're ushering, like, they're using the full squad because obviously Smalling out. If you went through the injuries they have at the moment, it's amazing that they're even in this position. And going into this midweek, they were only out of the top four by points. And they were so close to beating Milan the game before that would have put them into the top four. So in terms of the talent they do have a good talent when everyone's playing, but Tammy Abraham's been woeful this season, and Paulo Dybala is Paulo Dybala. How much can we rely on him and use him week in week out? You can't. And then we look at Wijnaldum has been injured for like the whole season, so you'd probably say, especially in the offensive sense, those 3 players were maybe Roma's most important players going into the season. And while they've had Paulo Dybala for like a fair bit of the season, he's done better than recent seasons at least. They haven't had an informed Tabby Abraham, and they've barely had Genie one out of him. And when he did start to look good and come back from injury, he gets injured again. So that's a worrying thing for him and his career going forward. But yeah, I can't be too critical on them. They're tedious to watch, but it's understandable at the moment, and it has to be this way. And they're just sort of grinding on that mentality and that togetherness, I guess, because a lot of the talk while Mourinho, this is the same season where I think Mourinho threw his right back Karsdorp under the bus and said he'll never be allowed back, and he pushed Zaniolo out of the club as well. So, but the togetherness he has in the group that's left, I think, is sort of pushing them forward. Typical Mourinho tactics. So look, I'll give credit for them still being in the hunt, but they are. I think Mourinho will prioritise the Europa League because he wants a trophy, and that's understandable. He wants to go back to back on European trophies with Roma. I know you love the storyline that he might win the Champions League next year and do the trifecta. And I can't criticize him for that. That might, and honestly, the tournament aspect of that might be the best way forward for Roma. Just focusing on those games in that competition and maybe just taking a little bit out of the league, taking a little bit of energy out of the league to put towards the Europa League. So I wouldn't be surprised from this moment if Roma can't sustain the challenge, but maybe they can sustain the challenge because Milan played at home in a midweek where, like, on the weekend, yes, they have a big game. But so I guess maybe Pioli is reserving something so that they can go back to back on Saturday and then midweek for the Champions League. But he rested the whole team. It was one of those teams where it only had Mike Mignon as starting 11 player, and the rest were out. And admittedly, this is my thing. I've said Milan can't rest any of their key players, let alone all of them. But they can't rest any of them for me to feel fairly confident that they'll win a game. But this was Cremonese at home. It's like, okay, like, I kind of get it. You should be able to get away with resting your players against Cremonese at home. They can't get away with resting their players. They Milan in recent weeks have all been all about the stoppage time sort of drama because I think they conceded about the 70th minute, and they looked like they were going to lose this game against a team who were waiting nearly half a season or over half a season for their first win in the league. They looked like they were going to go down to this team in a pivotal game for top four. So I guess it's no. You don't have to guess where Pioli's attention lies. He did this for the second leg of the Napoli tie, named a similar team, and the league means nothing. So I guess we got our answer on how Milan view it. Would you trade your position for Napoli's? No, no, they wouldn't. They want to try and win the Champions League. So, but this is so detrimental a result to their top four hopes, and they could have lost this game as well and been even behind Roma. So they were big losers, and that's why ultimately I can't yet rule out Roma as depleted as they look, because Juve were not convincing either. They, I think, barely even won the game, to be quite honest, but I think they won 2-1 at home. Um, they were Juve. They have players who are good. Moretti, Fagioli. Di Maria is a bit better than good when he plays, but he doesn't always play. He doesn't always want to play. Dusan Vlahovic, is he the new Christoph Piatek? Or is he actually good? That's the question that he needs to answer very soon. So Juve, I don't know. They have a solid enough defense for the most part. Danilo's really good. Bremer's really good. Locatelli's really good. Szczesny's a pretty good goalkeeper as well. And then their creative weapons, their players going forward, they're good enough to scrape by. They get these 1-0s, but they leave themselves no margin for error. Because on another day, I think they could have drawn or maybe lost. This game is a bit strong, but they definitely did enough to win it by the skin of their teeth. Nothing more. And I guess that's the identity of Juve this season, and I don't know if that will last forever. Them and Dortmund were actually in my bad books, and they're the two teams who went on these streaks that put themselves in the positions that they are right now. But they were the teams I never really believed in when they were doing it. I'm like, yeah, I think this is a bit of hype. I don't think these teams are that good. Remember when Juve kept like 7 or 8 clean sheets on the spin? And I was just like, nah, I don't think they're quite that. And Barcelona, I put into this category as well. So they look like that same old team. There's only 5 games for footballing karma to come and bite them on the ass, but I wouldn't put it past them. Again, and this is the beauty of the top 4 race in Serie A. All of these clubs, bar Lazio, have another way into the Champions League next season. But they've all got this sort of game to play. Which one do we prioritize? Which way do we want to go with this? Do we want to prioritize Europa League and try to win a trophy, like I said with Roma? Or are we going to go all out to get our league form right and finish in the top 4? Juve have this question. The 2 Milan clubs obviously have this question, and Roma have this question. So, yeah, it's fascinating from all aspects. But see, the form of Juve. The form of Atalanta. Now, Atalanta, you touched on them. Let's touch on them. The story of Atalanta has been strange this season because I thought at the start of the season, remember, I think they were pretty solid. They might have been top or second after 10 games. They came out fairly strong this the start of this season, and then they sort of waned a little bit. The World Cup came around, and then they've never really looked the same post-World Cup. I think Lookman was riding a high around that time, and now their forward line looks completely different. Now it looks like Duvan Sabata. They're going to trust him to carry them home. They started with the old guys up front, with him and Muriel starting up front. But what I do really like about Atalanta is the midfield. I like it when they play 3 in there, but if they could play Edison, Koopmeiners, and Derone in that midfield, I think that's honestly, it might be the strongest midfield out of all those top 4 contenders. I wouldn't put many above it. Even the Juve midfield, I wouldn't put above. And it's interesting that I'm talking about these two because they meet on the weekend. As well, we'll do the preview. We'll do the semi preview at the end. But I really like the midfield. I don't mind the wing backs. Zappacosta looks pretty good in this system. Definitely not Chelsea Zappacosta and Myla's a Danish international. Always looks fairly impressive. So good pieces there. I just don't love the defense. I do like Scalvini because he's so young and he looks like he could be a good one for the future. I like Musa. Musa's back in Muso's back in goal now. But whoever they play as the central centre back and Toloi, who always looks a bit leggy, they're just a bit all over the place. And I was watching their game and they won 3-2 at home. And it was like, I think I was torn between, there was a real feel good around, around Atalanta at the stadium in the win. And I'm just like, do they have belief that they might finish in the top four now? Or am I too concerned about their fragilities at the back? Because they were pretty much cruising in this game. Three identical goals as well, all from corners and then second motions or second actions from the corner, and they all score. Like they all didn't look the same off the second action, but it was all identical the way they scored. Um, but they just keep letting teams back, and they let the opposition back at this game, and they. I, yeah, I think they had a good chance towards the end. So I could have ended 3-3, and I'm worried. I'm just worried about their fragility. Like I said, I do like the quality of midfield. Do they have someone to take them home with goals? They're asking Zapata to do it. Maybe he could do it. We'll get more answers this weekend. But yeah, like you say, they're definitely in the mix again, and I'd written them off about 6 weeks ago. But again, that goes to the point of the inconsistencies of these teams trying to chase the top four in Italy, man. They're so inconsistent. Um, but a team who are looking to put something together in the last two games are Inter, because obviously they had a huge win against Lazio at home last weekend, turned that game right around, and then a massive 6-0 in the midweek against Verona, I believe, and just killed their opponent, given a gift early in the game, but I think they deserved what they got in the last two games because Inzaghi and Inter are actually at least still trying to signify that they're going for the top four, unlike their crosstown rivals in AC who don't do that with their team sheet. Inter named a strong team in this game, and that's why when they were given a gift that they were given in this game, they went on and they continued with it because they had enough quality to put their foot down and go for the kill, and that's what they did. And yeah, just recent weeks, I have more and more faith in Inter. They'll have more faith in themselves after the last two games. And if they can roll with this momentum because they have another huge game on the weekend and they have a huge game midweek, interesting to see what their tactics are in terms of rest. But yeah, they are they into the top four now?
Yes,
I
they're
think they are,
fourth.
aren't they? Yes,
And I
they
think you
are.
just touched on like what I wanted to ask
Yeah.
or alluded to in regards to what I wanted to ask, and that was if you were the manager right now of either AC or Inter, knowing that you're pretty much in the exact same position regarding Champions, or you're versing each other in Champions League, but you're in the same position regarding top four race, etc., etc. Would you take Inter's approach, which seems that they are playing their strongest players, they're playing their strongest teams, maybe rotating one or two players just to have a little bit of freshness, a little bit of rest, but they're trying to keep all their players towards this end of the season match fit, sharp, full of momentum, full of confidence because they're picking up wins? Or would you go with AC's approach, which is let's wrap our players in cotton wool for these easy games and risk it, but let's focus on pretty much put all our eggs in the one basket for Champions League? So like,
Yeah.
which approach would you take? Because like it's interesting that they both approached it differently, and they both have pretty
I
much. Would you say that they have a similar squad depth as well, or would you say Inter's is deeper?
That's a good question in itself. I'd say Inter's is probably a little deeper, but I don't love the options when Inter bring in maybe a Gersons and they bring in D'Ambrosio, players like this. not filled with confidence. So the squad is touch and go. I may shade it to Inter, but the difference is kind of negligible. But I personally would 100% go with the we have to win every game because there is absolutely, in fact, not only is there no guarantee that you'll win the Champions League, there is a high probability you will not win the Champions League because not only do you have to get through your 50-50 tie against your cross city rivals, but you also have to get through the team who comes out the other side, who everyone will be picking pretty much to win the competition, barring a few. So I think that's way too risky when you could find yourself at the end of the season not in the Champions League next season. Not all because, but a lot because you tried to go for it all and win it this season. So yeah, you could say there's something admirable about that, and maybe time will tell. And Milan have had the right tactics, and wrapping them in cotton wool is actually the right thing to do because they win the tie and those players look fresh. But ultimately, I think these clubs have a better avenue into the Champions League by going for the top four. And I think, yes, of course, you're going to play a full strength team in the Champions League, but I would risk the extra 5-7% fatigue because they had to play on the weekend before and the weekend after. I would risk that so that they could play in the league games, or at least not what Milan did. Like they rested the entire outfield except for Brahim Diaz as well, who I think played, but every other player was rotated, and it's just that's too much for me. A few key players have to play in these games because these games, like I said, they're so important for both clubs. Like, it's a tricky one, but I'll give you that. It's a tricky one because you do work so hard to be in this position, and you want to give yourself the best chance to win it from this position. So I get the arguments both ways. Personally, I think every game's too important. You got to try and win every game so that you finish in the top four,
Yeah,
and
because
then give your best to the Champions League.
there's like would you say there's equal okay? Would you say there's equal risk on both sides? So like one is you play your players, they get fatigued a little bit, and they risk injury, and then the other one is they're fresh, but are they match sharp? And also because they're not picking up results, they're picking up draws against teams that they should be winning. They're not exactly. They might not be exactly full of confidence, although they might still be full of confidence because they're like, well, we don't really care about these results. We care about the one coming up that we're resting for. So it's like it seems like it's equal on both sides, like in terms of risk versus reward.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think. Well, we'll do this in the build up. Just to touch on, I don't think Inter have the same. I don't want to call it mental fragility, but maybe mental naivety that Napoli had that Milan exposed, or they made it a point to exploit that. That's where they really made it a point to be sort of give the appearance of this team who had everything under control and who were going to stifle Napoli. I don't think Inter will fall for that, but who knows? I could be wrong, but we'll do all that in the preview. But yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I think it's 100% right in terms of that sharpness versus fatigue, and momentum sort of conundrum that you have when you come to this point of the season. But to wrap the top four thing and to get back to your original question, which was about Lazio, who were able to win 2-0 in the midweek in I would probably say their most important game of the season. They've had some reasonably big ones. Lazio have been flying very much under the radar. I think I've ever since our post World Cup break, I've tried to put them on the radar as much as I can, but they're very understated. I think Lazio, and for me, footballing wise, they are clearly the second best team in Italy because they have a clear footballing identity. It looks good to watch. It's kind of like Brighton. I think it's very similar style to Brighton in terms of the way they condense the space, in terms of the way they want to play in those tight spaces, and it's all in the name of making sure that if we lose the ball, there's no space for the opposition to work in, and if they play forward, there's no space for them to run in. The back four is so tight and compact, and I really enjoy watching it. And always say, I really enjoy watching Sarri teams. I think it's a really nice brand of football. But I was worried going into this game and why I felt it was their most important game of the season because obviously they were coming off 2 losses. And if you can say, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, but if you could say anything about Sarri, I think the perception is that his teams can crack mentally towards the end of the season. I think that's not a unfair characterization. Well, I don't know if it's unfair or fair, but he has won major trophies now. He's won a Europa League. He's won a Serie A title. So he's at least shown that he can do it with teams. And now it looks like he's odds on to finish top 2. But I was worried for them because, if they don't win this game at home against Sassuolo, they were so clearly in the top 4 just 2-3 weeks ago before Juve got their 15 points back. That could just crack them sort of mentally. But they responded. They came out in the first 20 minutes and they did what they've sort of tended to do. They came out strong, came out with intent. They looked like they knew the importance of the match. But then they did the thing that they've tended to do in recent weeks as well in the second half, and they just sat off. And they invited pressure, and while the game was still 1-0, Sassuolo were pushing, and it was not fully nervy because I think they have a really good goalkeeper behind them, but it wasn't comfortable, that's for sure. And they sort of had to get through that, and then they get their counter-attacking goal at the end of the game that puts a bit of gloss on the scoreline. But I don't like... One thing I'll say tactically about these Sarri teams is it's all about the team, and the whole team defends and the whole team attacks, obviously, and a lot of coaches are like that. But when they defend, because he's so fluid with the shape that they press from, if they're pressing high, for example, it's a 4-3-3, then they drop into the middle third 4-4-2, and then they drop into the final third like a 4-5-1. When they get into that 4-5-1, they find it so hard to get themselves out. They struggle to find the outballs because everyone's back doing their defensive work. Again, it's another thing. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. Do you need some cheaters so that you can get higher up the park and have that threat when you do win the ball back, but then you trade off? So, yeah, it's not necessarily criticism. It's just something I noticed, and they do really struggle after they come under, or after they invite pressure, they struggle. And I guess that's a symptom as well of it being late in the season and them struggling to maintain the energy levels needed to play the way they did in the first 20 minutes. You'd know all about that as an Arsenal supporter and what we've seen in recent weeks for sure. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to put Lazio on an Arsenal level of football, but I am saying football-wise, they're clearly the second best team. They have an identity. You know how they play. It is pleasing on the eye, I think, and I will say they've done all of this, been on the brink of finishing top 4, with a bit of a hit and miss. Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. I'm not completely warm on his season. I'm not saying I'm completely cold on it either, but I would like to see a little bit more. I think he's so good, and I think he's been a good leader. Or sometimes he loses his head, to be fair. He is the figurehead for the most part. I think given that Immobile has been in and out of the team this season, I think he has taken on that mantle. And those two players they're 1 and 2 players, although you could argue Lazio look a better team without Immobile in the team. Erling Haaland light over there. But yeah, it's just, I could do with a little bit more because I just think there is a little bit more in there for Milinkovic-Savic. But maybe I'm being ultra critical because they're second. And to your question, do I think that they're locked in? And this leads us to the last bit of this. I want to answer that after the weekend. I'm not going to use the word locked, but they have one very important game left. To be fair, they have 5 important games left, but this one is the biggest test. The others shouldn't be as big a test as and it's funny how this happened because obviously I was bigging up that it was Rome versus Milan last weekend in Serie A. Well, if you liked it the first time, you'll get more of it because we got Rome versus Milan again. The fixtures are reversed. We got Lazio against AC, and we've got Inter against Roma. So, and on top of that, we got some Atalanta against Juve. So, whilst I had to watch 6 games on during my Thursday, I'll only have to watch 3 games this weekend because they all play each other. How nicely does that work out? But yeah, I think this is a big test. If they can come away with a draw from this, I will feel very good about Lazio finishing in the top 4. But a loss, I'm still a bit sketchy. But it does also depend on other results.
So would you say this is Lazio's Newcastle versus Man United moment from a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
So if they win this, they lock it, you reckon? Because there's 4 games left. They'd be... I think that puts a little bit of distance between them and... well, hang on. If... let me just check them. The table... So if either... Wait, it's Lazio versus AC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So AC, if they win, they'll go on 61 points. So they'll only be 3 points clear. But we're saying if Lazio wins, Roma versus Inter, Roma will go to 61, Lazio will go to 67. So 6 points with 12 points to play for.
And it's their last big test as well.
Yeah.
I think the other fixtures are relatively easy.
Let me just double check. I don't know why, but whenever I click on Lazio, like it just brings up news stories, whereas when I click on the other teams, it brings up their actual matches.
That's how understated they are this season. They don't even have have the proper links.
Whatever, I can't be stuff searching for it, but yeah, it's we can agree that they'll be locked. You reckon? If they win?
Yeah, I think if they win, yeah, I can go along with that if they win.
All right. Well,
and especially because of all those reasons I said, because I think their football is good enough to carry them home as well. Because
you know that game.
The other teams
game is in 3 hours' time. Are you gonna watch it live or?
I know, so I don't want to do a big preview on it because obviously it'll already happen by the time this is out. But man, how nice is it? How nice are these fixtures? Serie A is definitely where it's at this weekend because
and then Roma Inter is like almost straight after it, like 3 hours
exactly
after that kickoff.
For you today, you have those 2 games, and then I think the Juve Atalanta is the early game tomorrow as well. So
yeah, 12:30
good
kickoff
for us as well.
Yeah, now there's an 8-hour diff between Australia and Europe.
Yeah, but I'm there's no surprise. I'm looking forward to that the most this weekend. I don't know if you had any thoughts after my huge monologue about Serie A, but man,
no, not really.
Quite exciting.
We spent 40 minutes on Italian football, on calcio. Definitely back. If we're spending 40 minutes on it, calcio is back.
It's definitely back.
But let's do a quick wrap of the other leagues. Let's just quickly go to Spain, because have you seen the latest news regarding Real Madrid?
No, I haven't seen.
Apparently, Jude Bellingham is agreed.
Oh yes, I have.
Apparently, it's agreed. But then I saw this morning apparently there's a 30 million price differential between Dortmund's valuation and Real Madrid's. So, like 2 days ago, I saw it was agreed, and then today I'm seeing potentially it's not. But what's 30 million for someone like Real Madrid? But the one question I'll have is, do you think it's better for Jude's development to be going to Real Madrid rather than to England, where there's a very, very big chance that he's going to get scrutinised by that English media if he doesn't hit the ground running and start performing? Because I think that I think that I don't know, depending on what team he goes to, if he was to go to England, I still feel with all the players around him at Real Madrid, that's probably the best place for him to go to, because, I don't know, Modric might sign another 1 year extension. He has a lot to learn from him. He has a lot to learn from Kroos as well. I imagine Kroos will stay. But then what they're building is probably similar to what Arsenal's building, because I saw like a list of like players that they have, like, and they're all like 21, 22, 23 years old. So like there's like 6 players there that are built to be like the future of, the team, and they're all that same age, so they're all going to develop together. And I know players develop at different rates, but at least they all develop together as well. So it's very interesting that they're going down that route. So Do you think that Real Madrid's the best place for him?
It's a very good place for him, especially for what you just said in terms of the way they've planned this squad. Is looks at the moment, as long as those players pan out, and there's no reason to expect all of those players won't pan out. They've shown so much promise when you think of Camavinga, when you think of Tchouaméni, when you think of Rodrigo. Vinny's not old
And that
himself.
midfield though, like if you just think about it,
I
like
know.
Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Jude, or like
I know.
Swap
That's the
Valverde.
next generation.
Yeah, swap
Yeah.
Valverde either for Rodrigo on the left wing or put him in the F for one of those midfielders. Like that,
It's a great option.
it
That's
sounds scary, potentially scary.
the only and it should be. It's so. But the only problem is the speculation around Ancelotti,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's committed maybe earlier than knowing who the manager will be next season. Given his position, he's in such a strong position to be talking with whoever he wants around Europe. I the best is hard to say because maybe I selfishly, but I kind of want to see him in the Premier League. I think, given his youthfulness right now, I think now is the perfect time to go to the Premier League. And I think, while it's hard to say no to a club like Real Madrid, if you're as good as your trajectory suggests and you continue on that, Real Madrid will always be there for you. And I thought maybe 4 or 5 years in the Premier League, and then when you're 24, 25, then it's Real Madrid time. Once you've played a lot of youthful in the youthful years of your career, you've played a lot of football in England. I think that's when you want to be playing football in the Premier League, when you can still get up and down, when you can still run, when you've got a manager like Pep Guardiola that you could potentially work under.
Or even
Um,
Arteta, because you
and I
mentioned
was
it.
gonna, I
Yeah,
prefer the Arsenal move personally, but Manchester City would be a fantastic choice. Even working with a manager like Ten Hag, I mean, I don't think United were going to be prepared to splash that kind of cash. But honestly, I think maybe Newcastle's a bit too much of a stretch. But
they have the
in
money,
fact,
but
in an ideal world, that might be the one I wanted to see the most. Jude Bellingham at Newcastle, apart from Liverpool, obviously, of course. But yeah, so it's hard to say the best, but it would be hard to say the best for Arsenal or Manchester City as well. I wouldn't be prepared to label any option as the best at this point. But man, when you're Jude Bellingham, they're pretty good options because you got
I
your pick.
I actually think like and this is like complete bias removed. I actually think that Arsenal probably would be a better move than Man City, just because of similar to Real Madrid, the core of that team, that starting 11 is all that same age. So if he stays there for 4 or 5 years, he develops alongside them, and they all and like he plays in the England team with like some of those players as well. Oh, actually, probably only Saka really, and Ramsdale, I suppose. Um, but yeah, I think that if you add that in, like the environment of the and the age of the team, it probably suits him to go to Arsenal, similar to the Real Madrid, all players being the same age. Whereas Man City, like I don't know, you imagine that a lot of those players might be moving on. Like Bernardo Silva was ready to move on last season. De Bruyne he's still great, but you mentioned he's probably becoming a moments player.
Yeah,
And then Gundogan, I think, is coming up to the end of his contract, so I think he's potentially. I think he is leaving. I think that's confirmed. It's only really Rodri there that's the same age or similar age, right?
yeah, in that midfield.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then again, like you got the Pep
and
factor.
obviously Haaland,
Yeah,
and you got
and Haaland,
Haaland
yeah,
is
and Foden.
and Foden, of course.
Yeah, so there's
So
some
there's no,
players
and
there, but I just think, and I just think that Arsenal would suit him better.
I can probably agree. In my mind's eye, it looks a little bit better with him at Arsenal, but City have the resources to get players in different positions as well. So all great options. They're probably the three standout options in terms of where anything else would have been like just us dreaming about him being somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. That's that's scary for what Real Madrid could be in the coming years. But I guess in the on the pitch, just a quick in Spain because I just wanted. I don't want to do a full victory lap because I bought a fair bit of it, but like it was how much can it go up? But my Atletico stock is doing quite nicely right now because they've just claimed second spot in La Liga after the midweek fixtures. They looked irresistible at home again. Antoine fucking Griezmann, what a player! It's no surprise they look like one of the best teams in Europe post World Cup because they can play this guy, and he is unbelievable. He does everything in the offensive sense. What a great player! And Atletico, well, this might shake the foundations of La Liga for next season with Real Madrid getting Jude Bellingham. In terms of, I think last pod I said Atletico might be my pick, my early pick. I'm not going to stick to it yet until I see how it pans out, but my early pick of favourites to win La Liga next season. If Real Madrid get Jude Bellingham, maybe that changes a little bit, but yeah, right now, in the league at least, and I know Real Madrid have the Champions League to focus on, but it's still not until next midweek, and they had a relatively big game against Sociedad in the midweek, and they gifted Sociedad a 2-0 win, which of course was a quite important win for Sociedad because it looks like they will get the fourth place because Villarreal were only able to draw away at Valencia. In that game, you could just feel the desperation of the Mestalla popping out of your TV screen when you were watching it because Valencia are in a desperate situation. You could feel that nervous energy, but they were able to get their equaliser in this game and scratch back a point that means Villarreal don't give them a 2% chance of making it. Sociedad have sort of turned their form around in the last 4 weeks. I think 3 wins and a draw, and some of them big wins. Of course, the draw against Betis a big draw, and the win against Real Madrid, obviously in the midweek, a big win. So on that run of form, the fact that I think quality in the side, I think they are the fourth best side. I think the way they play is better than Villarreal and Betis because Villarreal on their day can look like a really good side, but they don't have enough of those days. They're too inconsistent. Setien has made their identity all about football, and it leads to them maybe being a little bit soft defensively. They give up chances because they try and play out from the back. That's what they did in this game. It was Danny Parejo, of all people, who gives away the ball on the edge of his own box. So for that reason, I don't think I guess Villarreal really did change their identity mid-season by getting rid of Unai Emery and bringing in Quique Setien, who play completely different ways. And if you watch them under Emery and you watch them now, under Emery they were very much doing that sort of trick he's doing at Aston Villa with the 4 central midfielders sort of packing that middle area. But under Setien, it's all about Jeremy Pino and Samuel Chukwueze on the wings, and they want to play so wide. So it's understandable that maybe the higher ups, if they wanted to preserve it. I still think Villarreal should be really disappointed for not finishing top 4 because that side made the Champions League semi-finals. Yes, maybe a bit of an aberration because it's tournament football, but I still think they had enough quality to really give top 4. Well, to finish in the top 4. Going into the season, I would have thought they'd finish above Sociedad and Betis, but maybe it won't pan out. It shouldn't pan out that way with Sociedad, who look like they've got top 4 cemented, and Atleti, my boys, they might have second spot, and honestly, deservedly so for the way they've played. But yeah, I don't think there's too much else to say from Spain.
Well, it wasn't. It was.
Yeah.
I just remembered. Like, I looked at the table now. It was only like it felt like last pod, but it was 2 pods ago, based on when it was. But remember how we're talking about Barca keeping like 5 clean sheets or 6 clean sheets till the end of the season.
And they conceded 2 to Rayo the next game.
Yeah, and like that must have been like the same day that we did the pod, or the very next day that we did the pod. But we didn't touch on it last pod. So it was 2 pods ago we talked about that, and like it was already. I think we jinxed them.
It's gone.
I think we jinxed them. Can they still get 100 points though? 6 games left. 8. Yeah, they can. No, 5 games left. No,
Yeah,
they can't. They can't. 97
they
points.
can't.
Yeah, so that
Yeah, I
ruined the
didn't.
100 points tally as well. That loss.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I haven't watched much Barcelona recently. Yeah.
No, they won 1-0 once again. Is that the league wrapped up for them? 15 points. There's a 13-point gap, so I think they can wrap up the league this weekend.
Yeah, so maybe they'll get their Napoli moment then. Um, we'll just touch on there was German Cup in the midweek. I don't need to talk that much about it. Although Randall Koulibaly is putting an unbelievable run of form that might get Eintracht to at least win a trophy before he leaves. I think that would be warranted because his individual season has deserved something, I think. So at least they get a German Cup final to participate in. But the other side of the draw was a preview of what will be a huge game this weekend between Freiburg and Leipzig. And in this one, we saw the return of good Leipzig because they absolutely battered Freiburg to reach the cup final. I don't know. I think Freiburg pretty much named a full strength team. So I don't think it was a case of distraction ahead of them meeting again this weekend because they play each other. And I believe it's 2 points between them in the league, with Freiburg sitting in fourth, Leipzig sitting in fifth.
Yeah,
Leverkusen
2 points.
Leverkusen lost this morning to Cologne, so if they weren't already out of it, they're definitely out of it now.
Yeah.
So it's 3 for 2. It's Union, it's Freiburg, and it's Leipzig, and Freiburg and Leipzig play against each other this weekend. So can Freiburg get a little bit of revenge after what happened to them in the cup, much like we saw with Bayern against Freiburg, because Freiburg beat them in the cup, but then Bayern got their revenge in the league. Freiburg will be hoping it feels that way
And that
because
was
then they'll
at
be 5
Freiburg
points.
as well.
It was. They got battered, man. They
Mm.
got killed. Leipzig, with Christopher and Kuku in the team, they're a completely different team. They looked quite good in this game, and it was more akin to what we saw when Marco Rosa first came in. But recently, they haven't been on that level. But maybe they're hitting their form just at the right time. If they can go and run the slate and beat Freiburg twice in a week, then they've put Freiburg's season in disarray. With only 3 games left after this weekend. They'll put themselves in fourth position and pole position because Freiburg's, I believe, still have to play Union Berlin as well. So
Yep, next
this
weekend.
is, yeah, huge. It's a must-win game for Leipzig. It's probably a must-not-lose game for Freiburg. I think a draw, they'll probably take that if you gave them that going into the game. So yeah, that'll be a fascinating game if I can watch it over here, because they don't like showing Leipzig in Australia. So even like some of those websites that you can find the streaming of, like even they don't give me the games after the fact. So hopefully, fingers crossed that they see how important this game is. And just touching on the top of the table, they both play later on the Sunday, I believe, against, I think Bayern have Werder and
Mm-hmm.
Dortmund have Wolfsburg. Yeah. I just wanted to say, and I'm a bit late to this, but I don't listen to all the pods until after we do our pod because I don't want to be corrupted by other people's opinions. But I want to say that if Dortmund fans or people of a Dortmund persuasion want to turn around at the end of the season and say they did not win the league because Karim Adeyemi didn't get that penalty against Bochum, even though the referee has come out and apologised, much like the Premier League, or said that he got it wrong, I actually don't think he got it wrong. And this is like, and everywhere that I listen to pods, everyone's like, atrocious decision, easy penalty. I'm not even expecting you to support me. I think once you see it, if you look it up and you see it, you'll probably think I'm crazy for saying this. But I don't think it was a penalty. I think Adeyemi initiated all of the contact. I think the defender was going in to slide and to try and block a shot that never came because Adeyemi threw himself in the way of the tackle. It did look bad. It looks like he might roll his ankle. It looks like if he put his leg in there anymore, he might have broken his leg. He never had control of the ball. He was trying to do that thing where an attacker puts their body in the way of the ball. ultimately, that's why I don't think you'll have my side for this, because you love the attacker side. It does
I'm
look
having a
bad,
quick look.
but
But
for
keep
me,
going.
it's not a penalty. For me, it's not a penalty, and I just wanted to push back on that because no one has had the opinion where, even the referee apparently, when he looked back at it. But for me, I thought they made the right decision. I thought the public outcry was too much, and I just don't want to see them given as penalties. To be quite honest, I hate those attacker initiated sort of contact ones.
I'm just having a look at the highlights. I'm seeing if it's going to come through.
It was I think it was like the 60 something minute, 63rd minute or something. So if you can't find it now, I had to go back and watch the game because I had to see it again. Because even in live, I was like, I didn't make much of it. I'm like,
No,
it could have been given a penalty.
they didn't show it on the 1 minute highlights. Let's see if they show it on the 2 minute
Yeah,
highlights.
controversial.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not having that as an excuse. I don't know who I want to see win this league. To be quite honest, I don't really want to see either of them win the league, but probably Dortmund just because it'll be funnier if Bayern end up trophyless. But we'll see what happens. They'll both be expecting wins. Oh, and then finally, while you're still looking it up before we end on the Premier League, I guess, because we haven't even touched on the fact that Arsenal won a massive game against Chelsea in the
But
midweek.
we'll quickly touch on the French league.
Yeah, of course, because we have probably the last important game left in France, unless PSG can contrive to drop more points from here till the end of the season. They only play against Troyes on the weekend. You've got to expect them to win. But we'll also touch on a PSG topic, won't we, before we go into the Premier League as well. So enough said on them. But second play third, and we know the importance because I've been bigging it up in the last couple of pods of what finishing second instead of third means in Liga, because it gives you an automatic passage to the Champions League. It really is the last big game because it doesn't look. Monaco lost last weekend, and they don't look like they could catch Lens, who are now 8 points clear after they beat Toulouse in the midweek in their rescheduled fixture. So, yeah, this is a massive game, a game between, I think, two proactive teams. We could see a really good game. I think Lens are slightly better because they're more solid than Marseille. But Marseille probably better attacking quality. Or Openda versus Sanchez is a really good argument as to who's the better front man is. I think Seko Fofana has a chance to boss this midfield. I trust him a bit more than anyone Marseille have. So, look, I'm fascinated to watch this game. One of probably I guess we're up to 5 games that I'm really intrigued to watch. One from Germany, one from France, 3 from Italy. But yeah, that's a really big game in France. I don't know if you found the penalty yet. Did
No,
you?
it
Did you have
didn't.
a chance?
It wasn't on the
Good fight.
Bundesliga 1 minute and 2 minute highlights. So it probably there's a B in sports highlights that goes for like 6 minutes. It was probably in there, but I can't be stuffed looking for it now.
I'll see if I could. I'll see if I can show you it at the end of.
I'll have a look at the B in one after we end the pod, and then maybe I'll have my little say next at the start of next pod if I remember.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah. But did you want to touch on the elephant in the room that is in Paris?
Yeah, well, it's potentially going out of Paris. Well, I don't know. What do you think of the whole Messi situation? Because it seems like he was obviously welcomed with open arms, but then that relationship quickly soured once he wasn't hitting 40, 50 goals a season like he was at Barca.
He was never going to do that.
Yeah, and now
He'd already declined at Barca before he came over.
But-
That pandemic season, he wasn't great.
but now it seems that like the PSG fans have completely turned against him and Neymar, and they're using them as scapegoats for why PSG isn't successful, at least in the Champions League.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I think these two guys have massive problems in the, if not personality-wise, and that can be argued, especially in Neymar's case, but definitely in the football conundrum that it gives the team. I think they definitely they shouldn't be scapegoated, but it's not a surprise to see them post World Cup well, Neymar got injured, but even before he got injured,
Oh,
he
and
looked
then,
checked out.
but obviously the World Cup, Messi beating France in the finals, well, that just made things worse.
Well, this is so layered because obviously there's that aspect of it with the fans, but in terms of this actual suspension, Messi went to Saudi Arabia, and obviously PSG is owned by the Qataris. They don't want one of their players skipping a training session to promote
Well,
like a
apparently the
state that they're
story.
kind of at loggerheads with.
The thing is, apparently the story is that after every single game, the players get a free day, and then because they lost, pretty much right after the game or like last minute or something like that, like the coach is like, "Nah, you guys are having a punishment training or something like that." And Messi was already on the plane when that when that decision was made.
Yeah.
So like the trip and everything was actually pre-approved. Like they knew about it apparently if they approved it, or so it was just the fact that they lost, and the coach decided to plan a session instead of a free day, like a punishment session.
Yeah. That's how it happened. But I think
But
if he was
then,
going to Qatar and promoting Qatar, I don't think it would be such a severe
yeah,
punishment.
I
So
didn't. Yeah, you obviously throw that factor in there as well, because who knows, in Saudi Arabia, obviously you would have had some of the sheikhs or whatever in his ear about coming to one of the Saudi clubs for
well,
$1 million a
not
week or
just
something or
yeah,
more.
not just that as well though. But the story is because obviously the owner of PSG, he owns beIN Sports as well, and I was listening to the Athletic Football podcast, and they were going more in depth. So if you want more on this, go and listen to that. But basically, the gist was with beIN Sports, they were trying to get it into Saudi Arabia, and then they got it on the air over there. But on the first day of the World Cup, Saudi Arabia blocked the channel from there. So now obviously the PSG owner has beef with Saudi Arabia, and his maybe not his star asset, but his second star asset went over and promoted Saudi Arabia. I think that sort of adds into the feeling of unrest between the parties, and honestly, I think in the long run it'll be good for them if they can find a way to get out of Messi firstly and then Neymar. Much better for PSG because
Is
I think their future will be much brighter without those two at the club. I got to say,
is Neymar out of contract, or does he have a season left? Because I think Messi
I think he
has.
has a season.
I think
I
Messi
think Messi
has.
is out.
Yeah, I think he has an PSG hold the option to keep him for another year though.
They
But
won't do it.
otherwise he's a free agent at the end of the
Yeah.
season, I think. But you know what this sets up, and it's going to be very interesting from a macro perspective. What does it set up in the Champions League?
In the Champions League. Ooh, what are you going for? Oh,
PSG
I
versus
don't know.
Newcastle. It can actually happen.
Geopolitical
Actually,
climate.
actually, you know what? I'm not sure if it can actually happen because it depends what pot Newcastle are in and what pot PSG are in. But I imagine like Newcastle might be in pot 4 because this is going to be the first time they're in Europe, like in the last 20 years. I think. I don't think they were in the Europa League recently, were they? They definitely weren't this season.
Like 10 years ago or something, I think.
Maybe,
Might have
but
been
so
that
like
long.
they're probably going to be like pot 4. PSG are most likely pot 1 or pot 2. So yeah, I think they can be paired together. So that's we're going to get a Saudi Arabia versus Qatar potentially in the Champions League next season.
Well, I'm more interested to see what that PSG front line looks like next season because I think they have so much potential to make that team really good without Messi and
Well,
Neymar.
of course they do.
Uh, yeah, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. If you go out and you number one, and always will be number one for PSG, if you keep Kylian Mbappe for as long as you can, but then if you can put his French teammates, or if you could put Colomwani and Moussa Diaby next to him, I think that could be a really exciting front line. And it's one that's going to work hard for the team, barring Kylian Mbappe, but that's okay because he's Kylian Mbappe, and with only one player like that, we can get away with it. But when it's look, I'm honestly always staggered to see Messi's numbers this season because I thought it was really good going into the World Cup. I thought PSG were actually quite good going into the World Cup. Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe all motivated, all playing hard, all getting near double figures of goals or assists or both. Neymar was killing it before the World Cup, remember? So I thought they looked really good, but obviously with the World Cup this year, they tailed off, and I'm always staggered with Messi in particular because my eye test is just like I don't think he's a viable top level footballer anymore. Now I think when we did top players in the world, he ranked like 19th or 20th when we did it earlier in the season, and so I'm not calling him a mug. I still think he's like in the top 20 of the world, but it's the name. It's if I can compare him to someone else, it's like LeBron James in the NBA. I'm watching him play in the playoffs right now, and granted he is, I believe, injured while he's playing, but I'm watching him play. It's like people want to say he's like still a top 5 player in the league. I'm like, he's not a top 5. He's like maybe a top 12 player in the league, but he's old, man. Like he can't do what he used to do. So it's just the name that's sort of carrying him through, and sometimes that actually has a tangible advantage somehow. Like it gives everyone else confidence. But in the Messi situation, I don't think it's doing that for PSG for the reasons that we outlined, and it's just his name at the moment. Yes, he had unbelievable World Cup. I'm not taking any of his career achievements away from him. Of course, I wouldn't dare do it. I'm just saying, as we sit in the present moment, yes, he'll probably win the Ballon d'Or. I think that's completely wrong because he got what he deserved from the World Cup, which was a golden ball and the trophy at the end of it, and he won the Golden Boot as well, didn't he? Well,
No,
Mbappe pipped into
won
that.
yeah,
of course. That was the only one he didn't win that he was eligible for. So he got what he deserved from that. I think the Ballon d'Or is
are you playing with the microphone stand or something? Because I can hear like this sort of like echoing.
An echoing.
Yeah,
Is
you're
that
like you're
all
kicking.
good now?
Yeah, like you're kicking something, and like, I just hear something like coming from behind the microphone.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe the cord because there's so many cords at my legs now.
It sounds like something. Yeah, maybe
I will be very careful of the cord, but yeah, I just think it's just his name that carries him through. I don't think he's a viable option for PSG, especially as I've said with Kylian Mbappe. Maybe they can keep Neymar because it'll be hard to offload him, but I think the future will ultimately be bright for PSG. Granted that they can keep Mbappe, but if Real Madrid are putting their eggs in the Jude Bellingham basket, they're not getting Mbappe this off season. I don't see anyone else coming in for him. So
it's probably not their plan to get him this off season anyway. It's probably their plan to get him next off season when he has, because he only re-signed last season. Was it this last transfer window?
Yeah, like it was. Yeah,
the start of this season, or was it the start of last season?
The start of this season.
Yeah, so he has. And it was a 3-year deal, I think.
Yeah, I think there's varying reports on the contract, but I think there might have been safety nets where he could have gotten out after one.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. So either way you look at it, he has 2 years left, most likely after this season. But you talk about the front line and them, reinforcing it and whatnot, replacing Neymar and Messi. I've long believed that it's the midfield that is really lackluster. So they need to get some midfielders in there.
I think they maybe need. What I'll say on that, I think they maybe need one, maybe two, but they need one, probably a holding midfielder. Probably in that Casemiro mold. I keep throwing João Paulinia's name out there. I think he'd be a good son. But also, I will say, I think the midfielders will look a lot better if they have at least two of those forwards in front of them working and helping them out because they get exposed so much. So I think Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, even Marco Verratti will look better just by having players who are willing to work for the team ahead of them.
And an actual top class manager as well.
That's an interesting saga that we're going to see play out and who comes in. But yeah, so I don't know. That's PSG. That's the state of the the drama that is PSG.
But the one thing that I will throw out there is, I haven't got the latest reports. I haven't read up on the latest reports. But if it's true that I imagine it is true that they approved that he would leave. But if they didn't communicate to him that, oh, by the way, this is a change of plans, but there's a training session tomorrow, then that's on the coach that fucked up. But if it was they did communicate to him and he directly disobeyed, then yeah, they have every right to kick him out of the club.
Yeah. Well, I think what it does point to is they were looking for something, though.
Yeah, that too.
Because this is normally how PSG treat their stars. So I'll be interested to see if this is a turning point and they're no longer all about the stars and maybe they take a different focus and focus on the team a little bit more now.
Yeah, let's see how that goes. But let's finish up with some Premier League. There was some midweek fixtures, and let's start on Arsenal Chelsea.
I got a question for you.
Go on.
Do you have much to say on the game? Because if you want to say something on the game, you can. But Chelsea is so.
I don't have that much to say.
What are they?
They're dude. They are. Aren't they like 9 points off relegation? So they're 3 games off relegation, and they could potentially get dragged into it if they don't win any more games for the rest of the season. And the other teams managed to pick up.
They've been showing now that Chelsea haven't won in however many years, or whatever it's been since they last won a game. But they've been showing the scenarios in which Chelsea can get themselves relegated.
They can.
Yeah, they're having a lot of fun. Look, they can. I don't think
they will. Yeah.
Man, what is it now? Is it 6 or every game? Frank Lampard is taking.
Yeah, I think Frank Lampard himself is like 15 games winless or something like that. Like if you combine Everton with Chelsea, and then I think if you throw in the Champions League results as well, then it's. Man, I sort of feel sorry for him and Gerrard to an extent because they were such great players, and you know how you can, how sometimes you're like, oh yeah, like this player would be a great manager or a pretty good manager, and early on they showed it. Like Frank's first stint at Chelsea, I thought it was very good. They finished 4th, I think, and that was when they had that transfer embargo as well, and then Gerrard goes an invincible season with Rangers, stops Celtic from getting 10 in a row. It was looking okay for them, and because I like them both as players, I sort of feel sorry for them that it's not working out for them. But I think that maybe, even though they have been first team managers, I honestly think that they should probably both put their egos aside and just be like, look, I'm going to take like a not a semi year off, but like in terms of workload, try go a little bit under the radar and be like a second, like an assistant coach for like a top manager like Lampard. Go work on. I know Ancelotti's son is his second in charge, but go work for Ancelotti in Real Madrid. Go work for Mourinho in Roma. Even though you've seen him, you've played under him. But maybe this will give him a different perspective on how he manages, or like what it takes to be a manager, because it's different to like actually working under someone as a player than working under them as their second in charge. Gerrard, I don't know, could he be Klopp's second? Would you think that could work if he puts his ego aside and be like, screw it, I'll be an understudy to Klopp? Or will that sort of mer things with the Liverpool fans? Will that put their expectations too high that when Klopp does move on, that then Gerrard will take over? Or like, cause what if it doesn't work out as well? Like, what if they have a falling out? Or what if the results don't go their way?
That's been killed after the Villa stint. He'll need to take another job as an actual manager. But maybe if that's what he wants to do, if he could help coach at Liverpool under Klopp, then.
But is it maybe the best thing for them to do? I know, like I said.
No. It might be. It depends what they want to do. Maybe management just isn't the best thing for them to do in general, because
maybe. They were fantastic pundits. They were fantastic pundits.
Exactly. They can do all the punditry they want.
Yeah.
So why do they need to stress themselves with this management life? They were 2 of the best players who ever played in the Premier League. So I don't know. Like, it's just kind of crazy that they even want to do this.
Speaking of punditry, remember how Mourinho was doing punditry for like Sky, and I think he did for I think it was for not B and what's that on BT Sports. I think he did punditry for them as well. I think, but like I saw a clip of him and like when he spoke, like Gary Neville shut the fuck up. Jamie Carragher shut the fuck up, and they just let him speak, and they did not try to interrupt him at all. Like you could tell that he just like controls the room, and people want to listen to him. And like you're just like shit, man. Like he's a fantastic football mind. I think the problem is that I don't think he's in terms of his tactics and everything, I think it's fantastic. I think that it might be his management style that hasn't necessarily adapted to today's players. Similar to Wenger, because like from what I've heard from like Vieira speaking, Henry, like Wenger was he gave players the like freedom. He wasn't hands-on with them. And he just like, he trusted them enough to like take control of games, know what to do, etc., etc. Like pre-match, post-match. Whereas like you hear stories with Guardiola, like he's controlling players' diets and so on. Like he's very hands-on. And maybe that's just this new generation of player where they need someone, I don't know, holding their hand or something like that, or like, you know, being on top of them all the time. Whereas, you know, Wenger and Mourinho, they liked having like the Vieiras, the Henrys, the Drogbas, the Lampards, Terrys, like taking control of the dressing room and being that voice in the dressing room and then like them setting up the tactics and the training sessions and whatnot, and letting like their captains control the players.
Yeah, it's hard to comment without knowing the ins and outs of
That's
what
at least
goes on now.
From an outside perspective looking in, and like from
I
everything
think it's a fair characterization from the outside looking in. But yeah,
moving on though, like the Arsenal Chelsea game.
Yeah,
Look,
I was going to ask.
Go on.
From the Chelsea Arsenal, how would you feel about? I'll give you two options for Arsenal going down the Chelsea route again. But I was looking at Chelsea and I'm like, does Thiago Silva want to be here? And B, does N'Golo Kante want to be here? And are they of an age where, do they want to leave London? Probably not. Is there another team in London who are really good? Oh, there is. Yeah, Arsenal, the team we just played. They're really good this season and they're on the upward curve. Would you want either of those players at Arsenal next season?
I would have taken Thiago Silva back when he was a free agent, straight after PSG, because I think Gabriel was coming through as I think that was his first season.
You weren't in a position though. Thiago Silva was looking for more than Arsenal at that point.
Yeah, but because he would have been a very good ear and a very good mentor to Gabriel. Maybe he can still be that, because, you know, another Brazilian. We have Martinelli, we have Gabriel, we have Marquinhos, who is going to come back from loan. Unless they send him out again. So there's, you know, a Brazilian contingent there. I think I'd take him, but I'll tell him, like, look, you're coming in more as a player coach, maybe, like something like that. Like,
but the thing is, this guy is still one of the best centre backs in the world when he's played this season.
Okay, but
here's
would
the thing, though, like, he's not. Yeah, go on. You could ask.
I'm not sure if I'd replace him for either Gabriel or Saliba at this point in time.
I wouldn't either, and that's the thing. That's the conversation you have to have. But you might replace one of them for the Champions League games if you've got a fresh Thiago Silva who's still able to play.
Hang on, but if we had, I remember how I said you can't hang your head on Rob Holding to win you the league.
Exactly.
If we
Imagine
had
having Thiago Silva as the guy who fills in.
If we had Thiago Silva filling in, I don't think those games. I reckon we win Liverpool, we win West Ham, and we win Southampton, and we potentially win or draw Man City, I imagine. I actually reckon that those games go completely differently.
As long as he knows the deal that it's a sort of 25, maybe 30 top starts for the season in all competitions, but that he's not necessarily first choice, but he is a viable choice. When you have a Champions League game, you can put him in the league. You can put him in the Champions League, because his form is still that of one of the best in the world when he is
I'd take
playing.
him.
And I don't think he's been that injury prone given his age this season. There's been a few here and there, but it's not. It hasn't been terrible. It hasn't been like Di Maria like this season or Dybala like or anything like that. So he'd be really good. And what about the other one? Who would you take more out of him and N'Golo Kante? Firstly, do they sort of fill the same roles? Are they, or does if N'Golo Kante's fit, he kind of needs to play, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's the difficult one. Where like at least with Thiago Silva, you can be like, yeah, look, you're the third choice centre back, potentially fourth, because Kivior did look very good in that game.
He did, yeah.
He looked very good, and then it made you think, why the hell wasn't he playing instead of Rob Holding? Maybe it was just because he didn't want to go for a double left-footed centre back partnership, which is it's a little bit ridiculous. Like it's a very weak argument. But yeah, N'Golo Kante, you'd say that when fit, he probably walks into any team. Like, would you? I'd probably replace Rodri with him. He'd walk into Real Madrid, considering they lost Casemiro.
But the beauty,
I'm not sure if he replaces Casemiro at Real Madrid though, but he probably just pairs up with him.
Yeah, the beauty of N'Golo Kante is that he can do both. He can go box to box.
Yeah,
he's been playing as like a number 10 under Lampard, which is crazy, I've got to say. But he has been played as one of the number 10s. So, yeah, he can pair with anyone as well as be a replacement for anyone.
I'd definitely take him. And maybe he would be that... Maybe he could be like a... The only thing is like his age. Like I think he's the same age as us. Or like maybe he's a year younger. Let me just double check.
And the injury record is more even more worrying for
this season, the injury record.
Well, he had one a couple of seasons ago where it was a bit like this as well, so he's a bit touch and go with that.
I wrote Kanye instead of Kante because the Y is right next to T. He's older than us, 32. Maybe.
So who would you take more out of those two?
Probably Silva. Because I think that he could be a very good mentor for our young centre-backs. Because we have 3 young centre-backs now. Actually, Gabriel's like 25, 26. But even so, like he'd be a very good mentor to them. Whereas, like if you look at our midfield, like we have Jorginho in there now. We have Xhaka, who's had a fantastic season. Partey's 30 as well. And we have Odegaard in there as well. So like we have like a little bit of youth one youth mixed with experience. So like we're essentially adding another experienced player in there. So I'd take Thiago Silva.
Fair. I don't know who I'd take out of those two. I think they're both good options because Kante could also play the Xhaka role as well. If
100%.
In those bigger games. So I don't know. I was just looking at them both struggling at Chelsea. I'm just thinking, you guys are way too good to be embroiled in this bullshit. Go and play for a good team, please.
I imagine PSG might come knocking for Kante.
Yeah, they won't go back into the silver well, obviously, but the Kante one is very plausible. That doesn't fulfill the complete need, but he is. If they can get him and another midfielder, I think your midfield woes will be solved by signings like that. To be quite honest, so
hang on.
Yeah, PSG.
N'Golo Kante signed a 5-year contract extension with Chelsea in November 2018, keeping him at the club until 2023. So I'm not sure if that means that it's... I think that comes to an end. It depends how they did it, like whether it comes to an end this summer or whether it comes to an end in the winter. But I imagine that it comes to an end this summer, so he could be a free agent.
Yeah, potential.
Hang on.
But yeah, just an interesting thought.
But March 26th, Kante is expected to sign a 2-year deal until 2025. But that's... Yeah, I
thought I heard that earlier this season.
But he might not have signed. I don't know. Well, regardless, it's either will happen, but they're interesting options. But let's go into the game just like really quickly. First half, I thought Arsenal were amazing, and then the second half, we saw You know those games where like you think the game's over and you just start fucking around. That's what I saw in the second
Yeah,
half. Yeah,
yeah, that's
and
exactly what
and
it was.
unfortunately we copped a goal as well from it. But in all honesty, like once we were 3-0, I think we were 3-0 up already at halftime. I was just like, man, all right, let's 3-0. We're comfortable. We're looking great. Chelsea don't want to be here.
No.
Let's start improving that goal difference. Let's get 4, let's get 5, let's get 6, and then like they just started like Saka started doing a little bit too much. Like some players just started doing a little bit too much, and like once Trossard went off, that's when things started to actually collapse up front. So yeah, it's unfortunate that we actually couldn't win more and improve that goal difference because that who knows that could potentially be the difference at the end of the season, maybe if City draw two games. So
Well, we'll get our answer this weekend, won't we?
yeah, well,
As to whether we have a title race, because it is this weekend, right? Arsenal, Newcastle,
Sunday.
and that's obviously the sixth game that I'll be paying attention to. That piques my interest because they need to win after City obviously beat West Ham in the midweek. Not fully convincing against City, but good enough. What more is there to say? I think we've said it all in recent weeks. So, yeah, no, we'll get our answers. And man, I love watching a team who have something to fight for go to St James's Park. You might not feel the same way come Sunday, but man, St James's Park is a great place to watch a really great team. And on Sunday, hopefully, we'll be watching two great teams because hopefully Arsenal actually show up, unlike they did at the Etihad the other week. But if they do show up, we could have a great game of football on Sunday. Maybe the best of the weekend in terms of the actual quality that we could see.
Would you start Partey or would you start Jorginho? Because it felt like with
I
Jorginho there was a lot more free flowing, whereas with
maybe start both.
Partey's a bit maybe Partey.
You can't not play Partey at say. I think you need that stabilising force. I think Jorginho will get overrun in midfield if you don't have Partey at least next to him. I think he'll struggle because he'll have runners. He'll have Willock running off him. He'll have Longstaff running off him. He'll have Gamara's buzzing around him. That's too much. Jorginho gets overwhelmed by himself in that midfield. I'm never sold when Jorginho is a lone holding midfielder in the Premier League. In Serie A, he can do it. Probably in La Liga, he can do it. But the Premier League, for the physicality, he just can't cope defensively.
So it'll probably revert back to Partey, Xhaka, and Ødegaard in the midfield.
I think he will play that, but I think your Jorginho shout is a good one because if there's one thing that Jorginho gives you, it's that tempo dictation. He's a metronome in there, and every so often he plays a defense splitting pass well. So
but how do you set it up then? Do you set it up as like two holding mids with Partey and Jorginho and just give that whole middle of the space in front of them free to Ødegaard to roam into? Because Ødegaard only really plays on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it's probably changing a bit too much. So for that reason, I think it will be the three that we mentioned. But if it were to work like that, then yeah, probably more of an out-and-out 10 or Jesus, because he's not really a 9. He could drop into the spaces where Xhaka might be playing more often. It is more defensive, but maybe St James's Park calls for that sort of approach.
And would you start Trossard or Martinelli?
Both good options.
I don't know, it just feels like lately Trossard has probably looked better than Martinelli.
Yeah, which is crazy to say, given that I think Martinelli's hit double figures goals and assists as well, has he?
Yeah.
That's a tough question, but they're both good options. So whichever one he chooses, I'm sure, as an Arsenal supporter, I'd be happy with that if I was.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, I'm not bothered by who starts between them.
Yeah, that's a good.
Like I said, against Chelsea when Trossard came off, maybe it might have also been the fact that because Martinelli didn't start, he's like, oh, I only got half an hour. Like, I need to impress, so I'm going to do a little bit more than what I should. Maybe it was that, which I hate. But yeah, Trossard looked fantastic while he was on.
I will say, though, I think probably Martinelli has better attributes to expose Kieran Trippier on that side than Trossard does. I think just given the pace, I don't think Trippier will like that at all.
It seems that Trossard has a little bit better close control, though.
Yeah. I'd say probably he's a better technical player, maybe a little bit smarter given his
Yeah,
experience
that
as
too.
well. But I think Trippier, you're not going to outsmart. You've got to outrun him for me. If you want to kill him in that matchup, I think it's a physical player who kills him in that matchup rather than a smart player. Because Kieran Trippier is one of the smartest out
Yeah,
there.
and
To
then
be
you got
fair,
the big tall bloke on the other wing.
Dan Burn on the other
Yeah,
side.
Burn.
Yeah,
Yeah, Burn against Saka. I don't know. He gave him trouble
that'll be
last time,
huge. They
but
need. Saka's gone off the boil a little bit in
a
recent
little
weeks.
bit, yeah.
He needs to come back to the fore, and that's a good matchup where you'd expect him to at least get the chance to be isolated. But I thought Akanji was a good matchup at the Etihad, but they never got him isolated in that game. Whether that was Saka's fault, whether that was Arsenal's, probably portions of the blame go to each.
Yeah, I'd
But
say it's 50
they'll need to
50.
get him more involved in this game, that's for sure. We know that. Because at the Emirates, we remember how scared Newcastle were of Saka.
Yeah, like the first 30 minutes, and then they started doubling up on Saka.
Tripling up. Double,
Yeah,
tripling,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
you
yeah.
want.
So,
But I'm excited for this one. This is maybe this has the potential to be the last big relevant game in the Premier League, actually.
this is the title decider.
Well, not a decider, but it decides whether Arsenal still want to be in the race or not. Because if they lose, they're not in the race anymore. Well,
Yeah, that's
City
why
might lose as well. We don't think so.
Leeds.
Not at home
I
to
don't know.
Leeds.
I don't know. They got big Sam Allardyce back.
Big Sam.
Big dicey boy.
Did you hear the quote? I didn't hear the whole press conference, but like how he was talking about Pep, Klopp. None of these guys have anything in terms of knowledge on me. Imagine if he goes to the Etihad.
You need to. I need to watch it. I need to watch his tone, like whether he was saying that more in a joking tone or not. Because like when you just read
No,
it,
he
you're like,
looked dead serious. He was deadpan. If he was acting, he did a great job of acting. He looked good.
But then yeah, you also have those like the best comedy is like that serious comedy, and you're like this can't be serious. But then like because they're acting so serious when they're saying it, like it makes it even funnier. So I don't know, but I saw it and I was like, what's this guy smoking?
That would be the funniest result ever if Leeds went to the Etihad and even got a point.
Man, you know what? I was watching that first half against West. All right, you know how I talked about like why haven't like Martin Kieran mentioned it like. Teams are doing Man City favours. What Rice didn't play against City, did he?
No, I don't think he did.
So it's like, all right, he's good enough. He's like fit enough and good enough to play against us. It's a midweek fixture. You don't have the Conference League is next week. It's like, why the hell can't you play him? And like seriously, come on. Like we talked about favours from other teams. Like you don't play Rice, like your best player against City. It's like, okay, well, we're obviously not getting any favours from these teams. So that was a little bit frustrating to see that. But like
that's the narrative thing as well.
They did well for the first half at least, and I was thinking, okay, maybe they can scruff out. Yeah, maybe they can scruff out a draw. But like, let me just have a look at the table, because I think West Ham are safe now as well. 34 points, they can still get dragged into it. I don't know, like it depends what Moist was thinking. Moisty boy. But yeah, it's annoying that they didn't play Rice in that game, but he plays him against us.
Are you done with your Arsenal tale of woe? Let's see what happens this weekend. It's I think we've hit everything.
Pretty much.
It is what it is.
Yeah, whatever. Like, there's not really too many interesting games. Let's see if Leeds can have that new manager bounce, similar to what Everton had against us. Although that was Everton at Goodison, and this is Leeds at the Etihad. So I don't know. We'll see.
Here for the Big Sam vindication tour. If he gets a result at the Etihad, we're never going to hear the end of it.
Yeah, no, it will be fantastic for us.
For everyone except for City.
Yeah, for everyone except for City. But I think it'll be fantastic for Liverpool fans as well, because you guys hate City now too. Anyway, Caleb, anything else to add, or is that a wrap?
It's alright.
Slightly shorter pod, an hour and 40 minutes. So slightly shorter. Didn't you say that we could probably do it all in 20? Uh,
I don't know what
not live, at least. Not live. Anyway, Caleb. We didn't touch on Man United Brighton just quickly.
Oh yeah, of course.
I didn't see. I didn't see whether that was.
Game.
I didn't see whether that was a penalty or not.
Yeah, Luke Shaw just handballed it. Stupid.
Oh yeah, I think I saw the pictures. Yeah. Hang on. So that does sort of open
No,
the
don't.
door
We're not. No, wrap it up. I'm not talking about top four. Top four's done. United and Newcastle finishing top four.
Hang on.
No.
I don't know. Brighton, I still give them a sneaky chance. Although they still need to play Arsenal and City.
I don't. I don't give anyone outside of that top four a chance. Although Brighton somewhat deserve a chance. So look, I'll give you that 1%. You can have that 1% for Brighton. But hey, they got a good scalp of Manchester United. 99th minute penalty. Great penalty by McAllister, by the way. Top corner.
Isn't there rumours that apparently Liverpool are in for him?
Yeah, I did see that.
You take him?
Fabrizio Romano. So
would you take him?
Romario. I would. I don't know if he's the answer, but I'd definitely take him. He's a quality player. But I would look at other players before him. And he wouldn't be a priority of mine. I think we need something a bit more robust. But he's a really good player, so he'd help the midfield. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Do you know what's coming up on July 26th? Big game. Man United Wrexham.
Oh yeah, the big friendly.
You know what? And there's rumours that apparently Bale could be tempted out of retirement just for one season. And if Bale,
this is why we don't go. This is why we go for an hour 40 minutes.
Yeah, but you know what? That will be it'll be an interesting game if Bale ends up like signing for them and playing. Man, holy shit!
We're not sitting here and talking about postseason friendlies, are we? Really? Is that what we've gotten to with football this season? We're looking forward to Wrexham United. It's a post-season friendly.
A lot of the leagues and a lot of the positions are already wrapped up, you'd say. So yeah, I think we need to start looking forward to pre-season friendlies.
Yeah, I don't completely blame you.
No, I like the Wrexham story. It's nice, but
yeah, me too. I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, Caleb, it's been a pleasure. Everyone that's stuck around for an hour and 42 minutes. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff. Comment on give us some of your Wrexham thoughts. And thanks for coming, and bye for now.